How's it going, YouTube? This is Eli. Welcome to my channel. It's been a while since I've made a video, but excited to be back here on YouTube. Today I am in St. Louis, Missouri with the Nikon Zf, which is filming right now. Gonna walk around, shoot some street photography this weekend here in my visit to St. Louis. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I gotta give you guys some context. You're probably like, Eli's a Fujifilm shooter, why is he using a Nikon Zf? Okay, well, we're gonna get to that as this video keeps going. But long story short, I reached a point where I wanted to get back into full frame, just from a photography standpoint, low light perspective. Given some of the upcoming trips I have, something full frame is gonna be very necessary, as you'll see in future videos. I also wanted something that had, for lack of better terms, a beautiful aesthetic. And for me, as I was searching for something digital within my budget, looking at you, Leica, that would be not in the budget, the Nikon Zf is something that really stood out. It got a lot of great reviews. I love the vintage film look that this has. And for me, I'm like, what do I have to lose? So I sold my X Pro 2, sold my XS10, all my Fujifilm lenses. All that kit is now gone, and I'm fully invested in the Nikon Zf. I have this 40mm f2 lens as just my walk-around lens, and then some of the B-roll you're going to see from this video is going to be shot with the 24-70 f4. Right now you're just looking at iPhone footage because this is the only camera I own now. I don't have a photo and video separate. Everything is on this body now. So let's keep walking around, and we'll dive a little bit deeper as we go into my reasoning behind the Zf. Good morning, day 2, still here vlogging on the Zf. So I know this is a photography based video, but for anybody who's curious about how it looks vlogging, this is just with the internal IBIS on, and this is probably going to be stabilized in post a little bit. Before we get to all the details later on my thoughts on this camera, the pros, the cons, all that good stuff in my experience so far, we'll do that in a little bit at a conservatory here in St. Louis. Right now, let's go check out the arch. All right, we are now in the Missouri Botanical Gardens. This is specifically the Japanese garden, which does actually pertain to this video. Just trust me. So what I want to go over now is I've shot plenty of images, I've shot plenty of video, as you're seeing now, on this Nikon Zf. I have 4 main reasons why I switched from Fujifilm into this Zf. I want to go over those now, and then we'll keep walking the gardens and cover some of the things I love about this camera and just a couple of the things that I don't. The first reason I left Fujifilm for Nikon is simply the full frame image quality. The type of files I'm able to pull from this camera are gorgeous. Having the size of the full frame without having to go all the way to the much slower medium format system of Fujifilm, for me, was something I couldn't pass up, given the fact that this garden here is going to give me a little picture of what I'm going to be seeing this fall when I go to Japan for about a week and a half. Japan could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me, hopefully much more than that, but you never know. So I knew I needed to have the right gear for this trip. I'll be spending time in Tokyo and Kyoto and Mount Fuji, and I want something that is not APS-C sensor for this trip, something full frame where I can shoot day, night, all the different elements and be able to capture it in its entirety. Reason number 2 somewhat pertains to the first reason, but specifically low light capabilities. All right, I don't need to go over and over how much more a full frame sensor performs better than an APS-C sensor in the dark. This Nikon Zf is no exception. Its IBIS is exceptional so far in my experience. It does a lovely job of allowing me to drop that ISO down lower for nighttime shots in static environments. Of course, in more of a high-paced street situation, I would need to crank the shutter speed up and crank the ISO up as well, but I love the IBIS performance. Number 3, the quality of the raw files. To me, I edit in Lightroom. I have for years and years. I've tried other softwares. For me, Lightroom works the very best from a editing and a file management software perspective. So for me, Lightroom is what I'm going to be sticking with. And specifically within Lightroom, Fujifilm RAW files do not interact well with the software. A lot of times, especially out of certain camera bodies, they looked a little bit artifacty, noisy, grainy, much more so than they should have been at that ISO. I will say I own an X Pro 2 and an XS10. The X Pro 2 RAW files look better, but something I noticed in the newer XS10 sensor, the RAW images did not look even as good as the X Pro 2 RAW images in Lightroom. And for me, if I wanted to upgrade into Fujifilm's latest camera systems with the 40 megapixel sensor, I was concerned about having potentially even more noise in those RAW files within Lightroom. The Nikon RAW files integrate beautifully with Lightroom. In fact, whatever camera profile you use on the picture itself, on the RAW file, it imports on that setting in Lightroom automatically. The files look beautiful. And final reason, number 4, more future videos coming from me very soon covering this topic, but long story short, the ability to adapt manual focus and vintage lenses is something on this camera body that is a wonderful experience. We'll cover that later under the things I love category. For now, let's keep walking around the garden. All right, we're in a beautiful location now. Ironically, I'm going to talk about the 2 things I found so far about this camera that I don't love, and then we'll move on and talk about the things that I do. Number 1, auto ISO. Okay, this has already been exhausted all over the internet. You can watch videos about it. I'm not going to go into all the details. Bottom line, Nikon could have made it simpler. They could have put something on the actual ISO button to make life much easier for enabling, disabling, changing auto ISO. But alas, they didn't. No big problem. It's not the end of the world for me. Secondly, There are no native Z lenses, to my knowledge, made by Nikon with aperture rings. There's of course third-party glass, and then there's going to be adapted glass, which, as I said earlier, I will be discussing in a future video to give me that experience. But that's the one edge Fujifilm does still have on Nikon, is their native mounted lenses do not have a dedicated aperture ring. So you're required to do everything in camera, from the buttons, which is, again, for me, not a deal breaker. Would I like Nikon to come out with maybe a vintage line of Z lenses with the aperture ring? Absolutely. I would be very interested if that were to happen. But again, for now, that's not a make or break deal for me. Let's move on somewhere else in these gardens, and we're going to discuss the things I love about this Nikon Zf. Now for the things I love about the Zf. Number one, the build quality. Coming from the Fujifilm system, the X Pro 2 bodies were fantastic in terms of build quality. Some of the other models, such as my XS10, left something to be desired, felt pretty plasticky. The Zf does not. It's definitely not on the lighter weight side, but it is very sturdy, feels good in the hand. Number two, the look of the camera. This one's really obvious. I don't know how you could think this camera's ugly. It's beautiful. It looks just like the old Nikon F film cameras of old. Stunning. Third, the autofocus. The autofocus is very snappy, very quick. The subject tracking, the eye tracking. For those of you who shoot portraits or even faster paced street scenes, the autofocus is absolutely on point. It's exceptional. Fourth, the black and white mode. Okay, one click and you see the world in monochrome. Love the feature. I actually even love the straight out of camera JPEG monochrome files. They're beautiful, nice and contrasty, nice and punchy, but they have a really, really beautiful look to them. Even with all that contrast, it's not overbearing. It doesn't crunch the image to death. They're gorgeous. Fifth, the manual focus experience. Again, I'll be making more videos about this in the near future, so please stay tuned and subscribe for those. But several of the features this camera has, the focus peaking, all those different types of things really help with the manual lens shooting experience. Number six, the EVF. Beautiful, bright, crisp, clear. The EVS is a pleasure to use. I think it's fantastic. The Fujifilm ones, again, that I've had in the past, this is just where my comparisons come from. Obviously the OVF experience on the X Pro line is unparalleled, short of something that's called Leica. But the EVF within the Zf doesn't pull me out of the scene at all. It keeps me engaged right in the scene, right in the moment. Number seven, the metering. The metering I found to be very accurate, but even more importantly, this camera has highlight metering. That's probably not a major deal. I'm sure most modern cameras do. Again, the Fujifilm bodies that I had, some did, some didn't. Zf does, and it's excellent. It's really, really good for preserving your highlights, enhancing color, all those types of things. For me, that's something really important. And then finally, the video. You're watching it right now. It is 6K being downsampled into 4K in the camera body. I think it looks gorgeous. You get all the way up to 4K 60. This is 4K 24. I see nothing wrong with this. It's easy to work with, easy to edit, and I just shoot on the flat natural color profile in camera and do my edits in Final Cut Pro. All right, let's get back out, take some more images with the Zf. Well, that does it for today's video, but before I go, I do want to clarify one thing with you guys. I'm not hating on Fujifilm. It still has a near and dear place in my heart. And who knows, someday I may well own another Fujifilm camera. I still enjoy their cameras, the brand, all that good stuff. Just for me, with where I'm at right now, going the Nikon Zf route made way more logical sense, hence why I did it. But down below in the comments, let me know what camera system you shoot with, what lenses you enjoy. Love to have a dialogue down there in the comments. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Lots more content coming up featuring this Nikon Zf. I'll catch you guys in the next video.